I want to describe a realistic scenario. I want to describe a realistic scenario for those who suffer being a realistic scenario. For those who suffer being physically percenterous of our deses. And that's a centers and get a center. A F S F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F F Ev 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 Ev. We were in separate 4. You would in separate love with 11 years. Brady 4 2 ways to freeway 2 ways. Brady 4 2 way was freeway. 2 ways to freeway 2 ways to freeways to freeways to freeways to freeways. 2 ways to freeways. 2 ways to freeways 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 to free to freeze trace through the grace to freaks trace and 3 ways to freeze to freeze to freeze to freelace through the first for 3 ways for 3 ways for the cur the 3 way for the tie there the tie with the kind we cyper thigh say 3 when I remove safely and I remember that it was there was a lot love size but it was rarely saz sexual testual. We lived to comperly for Micah. We lived to comperser to we could prefer for we could we you would differ for we could prefer third into we talk with the text of we can date a sex. We could date the flask by the self and we could say for self way. Starting on college. I say some college to say sins. We could try 3 full like when I was young. Which do you prefer? And a symptom of that was do we prefer? And a symptom of that was fear and a symptom of a 0 wake side sack? And a 0 way could we kind to walk through the sidestein? See what do we can tell. But do we prefer Sichi lies to pick the sire to see with the sizer to be physical with me? It continue decline to cluned out, it continue. It can clin to the points X way, which do a time, we can clin to a, we could take an, beautiful beautiful low, which do you prefer? We prefer. We could prosect to. I am waste, I am scrandal, I am into our relation sides for Dester. We could be what? We prefer we could be preferred we could be? But we had to prefer to we had refined. Became a conventional size at treeway. But it's a prust freeway sides at proactively sides at proctilutive size of a passing protonus patholute at protsitives prizing posins at pos of the pridus size of a posins of a lot of prostums of a lot of positives that by process that are process sizes of a process size of a process size of a protsitus size of a process size of a process posses sizes of passes fosses phrases of pasins fosses of an injures. They miss then. That is kais as if they caused to pies a lot of people, will junk to the pies of bedroo with dead be pies because you were trend. By the bedroo with dead because we were trans. Whereas we are at the last freeways month we were together, dotyful we preferred though. That still meant sex was only once. Every way could they, during a second transis and filled in with, we could kind, before times duster we could tay. If we preferred to fur, the ester we preferred piter to preferred him, and after. I'd get hit on by straight men on gay. Wit is iterday I straight on I straight I strash Pupil 3 for send. They can call with the first dollar more sire. Me. We can be a prefer with the free weights. We prefer with the sadst ways. We could by sad with the quick ways. We could prick with the end of the night. I felt so disgust. You would prefer, I felt so disgusting. I felt so disgusting and untouchable. For so long, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. A little over a year ago, I learned she had been, I saw all the texts off, Budia Freeway Strevidia. Journal entries, etc. show at Trakes tracked out, emotionally and clear. Low-in class tracked out emotionally and clearly wanted to pursue this person. Bloody falls for theorly. We could be, bloody fall, or lost weight by lost months. We were to see when we were together. We couldn't do it. Prefer I lost over a dozen. By lost over a dozen pounds in 4 weeks, or we could prestir. Stress, vomiting and starving myself, waste and starving myself. We could probably see on it. We do you prefer with lose oh wa woo woo wooth with wooth free wooth wooth. I was abused. I felt a side slash biddy full weighty for this to the fruity. If we prefer to 3-way to phase, we decade of the second, we could prefer to send streefer 2 ways to e for the person and 2 ways to e for. This is the person. A month later. Bad pretty furdy for the pre. Beauty for liddy prefer. Biddy pretty preferly a self with for very lie. By myself with very little money. What is to? We will look at a true street 35. Bid you fi we would litter I still per pie. So we would list to our destinates. It's by we could prefer. We could prefer it. We could be way. It would pass. Do we? It was more to way. It was so. Too well. It was, at point, it is so well. It was so well, it is so, it is there. It is there, it is so, and I was also dating for there. And as my authentic self, and as my end is more as my authentic self. And as a self, that I would say. I is so, and as a self. In a short period, xt4, menu z4, 4 way for design with prover, way for prover with prover for destry for dayful, way for destry for destry for destry for destry for destry, which was taking, which destry for destry, which was destry for destry for destry for destry for destry for destry for destries destry sievers to destries destries to with the sortie ser to tiger time to taver ties stacks, bratter, exeister bratter, pradry sassly, and sassly, sassleys. Which do you prefer? It would see quina hecko with, which do we prefer? Or Nick would prefer to see with, we could pretty hand. We could prefer the preset. We could prefer the erd, and went. Bootyful stas. Which do you prefer, Lutyful dister? Which do we? Bootyful stastries dear we can take beater there. Beautiful, wittyful, which do you care size physical? Enst you witty fee way? I do, NC. If we prefer. If we have a week or so, which do you prefer? If we have a week or so, we have a week or we have a wayways. We catch your dep day, we can catch it in that, we can Kansas, we can connect in that. We can connect in that way. We prefer I felt so in, sex is a trans person, but she's so uxed for us. You know us, I get to be myself and me. If we could prefer I came at 2 ways to be. If we could be it, better with things to we. If we could bitter things to we. But not the way I planned. Beauty forded newly for CV. 7. Booty 40. Where we'd be refer. Where we'd be one of those of our school. Where we'd be one of those sweetheart to old age couples you hear about in stories. But as a mutant, bout we could bend to us. But as of the present, I've been evaluated, it would be sad. But we could be sad, we could be. It's rough some days. I thought I would prefer. But I learned through this. Biddy we prefer. But I learned through this decade. We prefer but I learned through this decade-long experience of extonda. Kind to do this decade. You make a soul feely to say lo sad of a's. But person you love ways for. There are many ingredients to their prefer. There are many ingredients to this destination. There are many ingredients to this. And intiminy is one in this kind of in this lesson. And intiminy is sullen to this. There are this ellie is sullen to crow with it is there to corda, be a preferred prodidacy, but do not feel good to do prefer one. To feel coarse? By we corda one? So we can't feel like person wow. In your relationship, you deserve to feel desired to feel. Do desire do you? And you are desirable do desire being done. We could liver a destard a pre-wes. We could liver with. We could liver a destard a preset. We could liver a destard a pre-wait. I could liver a solder. We could liver a pre-way.